Hello and welcome to the first in my series of short videos about ways to uncover your greatest gifts and your deepest soul purpose. The first one I feel is the one wanting to be spoken about is the topic of neurodivergence. And very specifically, understanding our neurodivergence as a gift, going from suffering to superpower. So again, with each of the different videos I'm going to be doing, they're talking about a specific aspect of ourselves and how we're showing up and our wounds, areas that perhaps we're experiencing as a challenge, and looking at them through the lens of what's really going on. Why am I this way? Why has my life gone in this direction? And as Jung says in one of my most quoted quotes, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. This is the work of understanding, making conscious what's at play, so it no longer unfolds in a way that we get to look back and go, oh, okay, I guess I was supposed to have this, life that isn't what I would have chosen. And yet it looks like that was fated. This is the work of really understanding ourselves, illuminating our true self so that we can live our soul purpose. So again, the first one in this series is neurodivergence. And when I say neurodivergence, whilst really we, in the work that we do at Wake in the Wild, we're looking beyond the labels, beyond these kind of namings of these so-called disorders. For the moment, I'm going to talk about them as the kind of typical labels we might know them. So autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, those kinds of what we term as neurodivergences. And it may be you already know that you have one or more of these neurodivergences, and often they do come together. They're often comorbid with each other. So, for example, autism and ADHD often show up together. Talking personally, I have pretty much all of those neurodivergences apart from dyslexia. I'm actually hyperlexic. And often this is the case. Often we notice these kind of groupings of traits. And it may well be, depending on whether it's something you actually know you have, or perhaps a suspicions that you have, or perhaps like me, you've actually had a diagnosis. Depending on where you are on your journey, you might be very aware of, like, I seem to be more sensitive than is typical. And those sensitivities can show up in terms of being very sensitive from a sensory perspective, finding different kinds of environments, lighting, temperature, fabrics, noises, like a barrage on your senses. It could be that you're very emotionally sensitive, that you notice that you just feel so much. Often these are people who have this kind of like emotional sensitivity, might sort of know themselves as being empaths, or might call themselves like highly sensitive people. Either way, you'll really know that you seem to have this kind of just very emotionally sensitive way of being. It might be that you really struggle with change, or the opposite, that you have a real need for kind of spontaneity and new experiences. You might have a kind of real need for routine. Often, again, I'm autistic myself. I have a real need for structure and routine and my days to go a certain way. It might be that you have challenges with organizing your life. It could be understanding social situations. It can be motor functions in the case of dyspraxia, or even just simplest of day-to-day tasks. Talking personally, I really struggle with things connected to like numbers and dates. And so that's something that, as much as possible, I don't do. I have, people in my life that one way or another support me so that I don't make constant mistakes with dates, numbers, arranging appointments. When, for whatever reason, I do need to be involved in things of that nature, I have to focus really carefully. Otherwise, I will make mistakes and not notice I've even done it. I even do it with months, even though they don't have numbers in. Just the other day, actually, Sarah in the Wake and Wild team said to me, oh, we've changed the start date for an upcoming Crucible. because I'd mentioned it on something and we hadn't changed it at all. I just put in a completely different month to the one that I knew that we were planning to open it in. So that's an example of all these different ways these things can show up. And again, much of what I've just described are things that are true for me personally. So I get it. And at points in my life, these sensitivities, and particularly for me, like the sensory sensitivities are, have really sort of shaped my life and made some things like often impossible. And even now, there's real challenges I have. At some points, I can't go to supermarkets or certain supermarkets because of the kind of sensory kind of like the sense of like just being overwhelmed with all the different stimuli. So I really understand if that's where you are and you are experiencing these differences, these divergences as a challenge. If you feel as though all they bring is suffering, I really understand it. And again, my hope is you're hearing what I'm about to say, something that allows you to see that, okay, it's not to bypass or dismiss the very real challenges that these divergences can bring, but also to recognize there's something else too. So and what I'm about to share is what's been true for me personally, but it's also what we've seen over and over again with the people that come to work with us in Waking the Wild. And it is the people with these kinds of differences, these kind of neurodivergences, they are here for a particular reason. It isn't a mistake that they are more open and more sensitive than is typical. It's there for a reason. It's essential for them to be able to unfold their own life path, to really express themselves fully as the soul they came here to be. These ways of experiencing the world differently are essential. It's not that something's gone wrong, it's the opposite. It can feel as though something's gone wrong because when we are that sensitive and we're in the modern world, which isn't designed for people who are very sensitive, it can feel as though either there's something wrong with us or there's something wrong with the world. And of course, there are many things that are very out of balance with the world. The thing to recognize is we were put here or chose to come here now with these differences because of the very important role that we need to play right now. There is no mistake in terms of the age that we've come here for and the way that we are designed. It's because we are here to play a very important role, being the bridges in whatever's going to come next, creating this, like bridging what was the old ways, the ancient ways, the ways we were deeply connected to natural cycles, to animals, to plants, to bring like to our ancestors, to bring this ancient way of knowing how to be human and bringing it into whatever's going to come next to retain and restore balance. And this in, times gone by for most of human history was a role that was essential in every community. Whether we want to call that the shaman, the medicine man or medicine woman, we would have had a person or people who were responsible for looking at what was required to know there is a balance needed, balancing between spirit and the people in the village. And so more and more we see that people who are these very open, sensitive people, that is the role we're here to play. We may not have the village we used to have. And yet, and in fact, despite of that, and because of that, our role here as mediators, as people who can be the bridges, is actually more important than ever. So whatever that looks like for you is yet to be revealed. All I can say is, again, there are no mistakes. If you are able to experience this world differently, it is for good reason. It is because you've come here to play a very important role in what unfolds next. I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if there's anything else that might be helpful for me to say. I'm going to give you a personal example, which is in my own journey of understanding my differences, my neurodivergences, and then also what the role is that I'm here to play, I discovered around the same time as I discovered I was autistic. So I'd had like a sense of it and had suspicions for a number of years. And then it was a couple of years ago, I was clinically diagnosed with autism. At almost the same time, I was also discovering that research has shown that the autistic brain in the pineal gland in the autistic brain hypermetabolizes DMT. DMT is also known as the spirit molecule. It's what's involved and what's the component of most, if not all, plant teachers, plant medicines. It's that opening to spirit. And so the autistic brain is designed in a way that actually kind of heightens the impact. It allows it to have a deeper effect. And so I discovered that at the same time as I discovered I was autistic, at the same time as I was deeply devoting to the shamanic path. And so these things for me weren't just a kind of theory. All of this unfolded at once. As soon as I started to open to my neurodivergence and understanding it as like potentially being something more than just a difficulty or a challenge, I was also shown the role I was here to play. And so the same has been true over and over again for so many people that we've guided on their soul path in the work that we do at Wake in the Wild. So if you're hearing this and there is some sense in you of like, okay, and again, maybe you know that you've got a particular neurodivergence, or maybe you're hearing something in this in terms of being more open, being more sensitive. My invitation to you is to trust yourself, trust what you're experiencing, and know there is going to be something revealed in terms of how this relates to your greatest gifts and your soul purpose. So much love to you. And we'll be coming back again next time with another way you can uncover your greatest gifts and your deepest soul purpose. Mwah. Goodbye.